All right, maybe this is you. You go plug in your HX Stomp, you go from one preset to the other and the volume drops or gets way too loud. Or maybe you download some amazing presets from, who knows, I don't know, Hey Worship Leader, and you get presets from someone else and you go from preset to preset and it same thing, gets loud or it gets too quiet, or you make your own and you just struggle with overall volume of your presets. Well, don't worry, I'm gonna guide you today through a tutorial to understand gain and volume and how to make sure that you can level everything up on the HX Stomp. Boom, the HX Stomp XL, the Pod Go, the Helix, all of it. Let's dive in. And the reason leveling our volume is important, at least from my experience, there's three things. The first thing is that sometimes our presets get too loud and we hear like some digital clipping or some unwanted artifacts and you're like, how do I get rid of that? We're gonna talk about that. Number two, going from preset to preset should be the same volume, so we just talked about that. Number three, you need to be able to quickly adjust what front of house needs from you when you're talking about volume. They may say, hey, you're sending us way too hot of a signal, cut it back a little bit. Or they're saying, hey, we need a lot more from you and you need to know exactly how to do that without messing up your tone. So now we know the what we are doing, we need to figure out how. And the first thing we need to do is adjust our volume at the global settings level. We need a certain setting to be correct. See, on the HX Stomp right here, we have this volume knob that adjusts our main outputs. Okay, the HX Stomp XL has the same thing, except it's kind of hidden and it's in the back, cool little button there. On the Pod Go, there's a big knob, same thing with the Helix stuff. So what we want to do is we want to basically disable that knob. And the way we do it is go into global settings and set this knob, instead of to the main output, set it to something else. On the HX stuff, on the HX Stomp stuff, it's like set it to headphones. That way you're setting it to the headphone out, and this knob will no longer adjust the output volume anymore. That way you don't accidentally bump this or your instrument cable doesn't run by it, and you will always be sending 100% pure volume. That's what we want. Now on the Pod Go, I don't think there's a setting where you can do this, so just keep it all the way up. That way it doesn't get adjusted or bumped. If you're like, hey, I need to send a little less, and you turn that knob, I guess it can be convenient, but sometimes that knob can get bumped, like we said. Same thing on the Helix, just disable that knob. I think on the full Helix, which I don't have, there's actually two knobs, headphones and the bigger volume knob, but you can still set it to like digital or something. So that's the first thing. Let's make sure that we are sending the max amount of pure volume that we can before we even get to the preset level. All right, now the second thing, and this is where we're gonna spend the majority of our time, we're gonna need to understand the difference between gain and volume and know when they affect your tone and when it doesn't. So at the very outset here, things that are labeled gain or drive or master volume, like on an amp, those things change your tone. They also change the volume of your preset, but it changes your tone. So we don't want to mess with those. The first step is like when you're setting up a preset, you adjust all those things to get the sound that you want, to how your pickups interact with the amp and how different effects interact with each other. And then we don't want to touch those anymore because we'll be changing our tone if we do. So we want now to adjust volume, or what we will call loudness, or if I say pure volume, we're just talking about ticking your tone up or down, not changing the tone. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's head over here to HX Edit. I have a preset pulled up here from my Sunday Ready pack. You can check that out down below. Let's look at those three things that I was talking about that do change your tone. So right here's an overdrive. Gain right here changes your tone. Boom. If we go over here to the amp, drive changes your tone, and even master. But let's talk about the things now that do not affect your tone, that are pure volume. One of the first ones you need to know is channel volume on your amp right here. This right here is pure loudness, pure volume. It does not affect your tone in any way, except we're gonna get to some of the tips here in a little bit, because it can do some things, but this is just pure volume. It doesn't gain up your amp. It doesn't change anything. Also, anything that says level, see this level right here on this overdrive, pure volume. If we go over here to like, well, our IRs or a cab that has a level, this is pure volume. Also, our modulation and delays, they all have level. Most of them do. Yeah, they do. And so we can adjust level, pure volume on all of those things. But here's an important thing to know about pure volume is that any pure volume level adjustment that comes before your amp even though it is pure volume, I don't want you to be confused, it will change your tone. Okay, so this pure volume right here on this drive, it will change the tone because it's coming before the amp, just like a real world amp. When you push more volume, not necessarily gain or distortion, but more volume into the front of an amp, it is going to break up more. It's the same thing that like a clean boost does. It's shoving more signal into the amp, which then overdrives the amp. So it's not more overdrive in that specific block or an effect, but it is going to affect what's downstream from it. In this case, our amp, it's gonna drive it more. So we do not want to adjust our overall volume with any level on that comes before the amp, whether it be on our compression here or like an overdrive. And so now the inverse of that same principle applies. Any pure volume, this level on all these effects that come after the amp, they're not gonna push more volume into the amp, and so it won't give you any more gain. That's a good thing. That's what we're looking for. But beware, some effects do change and they add clipping when too much volume is pushed into them. And so I said right here, your channel volume on your amp is very important. This kind of like you set in the tone of your amp and then you get the amp as loud as you want it. But sometimes if the amp is too loud and your cabs or your IRs are too loud and there's a lot of volume being built up, some of your wet effects will not enjoy that very well, and they might introduce some clipping, some digital clipping or artifacts that you don't want. You're like, that doesn't sound natural. So to give you a little tip, any effect that has this parameter right here, headroom, you probably, if you don't want those artifacts, if you do want to hear what I'm talking about, just take this headroom all the way down and you'll start hearing it. I always just crank the headroom on any effect that has that. So not all these reverbs do. I think a couple reverbs do. Several delays do. I think the transistor tape does as well. Some modulations do. Let's see if we can find one. Okay, here's one right here. The triple rotary has headroom. I guess all these rotaries probably do. Vibrato has it, this bubble vibrato, which I really love using. It has it, not all of them, but just check. If it does, there's the Ampeg liquefier. So if it has headroom, just crank that headroom up. And then let me just say, if you've cranked the headroom and you're still getting those artifacts, then you need to go back to your channel volume on your amp and bring this down. And don't worry, like we said, it does not affect your tone. It's just pure volume. Now, last thing I want to mention is to do your best to leave the output level alone. Because this is what we need when front of house says, hey, I need more from you, or I need less from you. When you go from preset to preset, you want to level, like let's say we had this Blues Junior preset and I went down here to the Dumble preset and it just jumped in volume. I would want to start messing with the channel volume, and usually I'm taking away. So I would take whatever's the loud one and bring it down to match the quiet one, because we just have a tendency to think louder is better, and it's okay to get a little quieter. So I would, in order to not shove more volume or loudness into my wet effects, I would bring the loud preset down to match, and I would do that at the channel volume level. All that to say, I would make sure to leave this level alone. Don't use this level to adjust your preset, because you want this to be at 0 so that when front of house says, hey, you're sending me too much, can you back off 5 dB? You just say, yeah, and it's easy to go like on the units and just back off 5 dB. And however many presets you're using that day, if they've already been leveled at the channel volume level and everything sounds good, then now you have like this 0 that you can start from and go to each preset, back off 5 decibels, save it, go to the other one, back off 5 decibels, and you know you will stay the same. Or if you need to add, we have up to 20 dB to send them. So if you're at 0, look at this, you still have 20 dB you can send them, which is a bunch of volume. If you still can't, if you still need more from you after that, there's probably something wrong, I would say. But to move on to the next and final tip, if you have maxed this out and your channel volume is already maxed out, like I said, that should be plenty of volume. But you still have a little sneaky little place where you can add volume, pure volume, and that is to go into the last effect in your chain, and you have an extra 6 dB right there. And if this effect doesn't have like the headroom parameter, then go to the one right before it and you can also get another 6 dB. So there's plenty of volume on tap. And when you adjust these at the end of the chain, it's not sending anything else into the front to add any gain or clipping. Now, if you like to see things and be taught at your own pace, I created a free PDF version of how to create tone. It's called my free Tone Secrets Guide. It's for the Podgo or the HX Stomp stuff, the HELIX stuff. There's 2 different ones in there. Go check that out as screenshots and a play-by-play of how to build a preset from scratch. Also, if you want to know some more tone tips, check out this video right here. I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.